now the football over the holiday period has been obviously interfered with gravely by COVID. Lots of players going down, and two managers, well, maybe more than two, but certainly Mikel Arteta, the Arsenal coach, and Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool's coach, both missing from their games with COVID. But the teams played to packed stadiums, and the games were, as always, fascinating. This is a period where the league can sometimes be won and lost, and arguably in this period, Manchester City will secure the title. They're 11 points clear, and maybe 10 now after the draw between Chelsea and Liverpool, which was a bad result for those two clubs, but a really good result for Manchester City. But all that remains to be seen. Also remains to be seen what's happening at Manchester United, who got a terrible result yesterday as a result of a terrible performance against Wolves. I'm joined now by Liam Brady and John Giles to discuss this weekend's games, indeed the holiday games. John, let's start off with the City-Arsenal match, which really was fascinating for many reasons. One of them being that many people, and I share the view, believed that Arsenal really could have won this game, and they showed a lot of promise, a lot of good stuff there, a lot of good performances, and City were lucky.
Yeah, well, yeah, they rode their luck, Eamon, there's no doubt about that. Arsenal started well, they looked very, very good. But there's one thing missing. I don't want to be too harsh on Arsenal, but a lot of controversy over all the referees' decisions and that, Eamon.
Yes.
But ultimately, a lack of discipline let them down. Xhaka, again,
yes.
Giving away the penalty. A lot of people said, well, it wasn't, but he was pulling the jersey off Silva. I thought it was a penalty. But then you had the other lad who tried to put his studs into the penalty spot when the penalty was given, Eamon. Gabriel,
yeah.
And then committed a stupid foul to get off. And actually gone off the pitch, he's clapping the crowd, and the crowd are clapping him.
Yeah.
We should be getting a kick up the backside from the manager, who was ever in charge, to get us to that stage. But there was a lot of promise from Arsenal in their performance, Eamon. A lot of young players, as we know, very, very good players. And I think had they not lost a player, got conceded a bad penalty, even Guardiola said they were lucky.
Yes, they were.
And luck did go City's way. There's no doubt about that. And the things look much better for Arsenal than they did, definitely early on in the season. But they have to get that discipline in the side, particularly from Xhaka, if they're ever going to get it from him.
Yeah, Liam, this is your club, and it's been very, very hard for a very long time at Arsenal by the high standards they've set for themselves. We should say that Rodri got the winning goal in the 90th minute. It's the kind of thing that happens, Liam, isn't it? When you're going to win the championship, you get a break. But really, there's a lot to be encouraged by with the young Arsenal players. Saka, for example, who scored their goal. Martinelli, the young Brazilian winger, Smith Rowe. You've been very frank with us about Arsenal in the bad times. What are you seeing now, Liam?
Well, I'm seeing a side that's playing consistently the same team, Eamon, which I think has helped enormously. I know he changed a lot of players for the League Cup tie against Sunderland. He was able to give players a rest and still win the game. But I see a consistency to the defence, and there's only really one change going on. It's whether Odegaard plays or whether Smith Rowe plays.
Yeah.
Aubameyang has gone for disciplinary reasons. He's not being considered, and I think Lacazette has led the line very well. And as John and yourself have been saying, you've got two very, very quick players in Martinelli and Saka who are playing very, very well. But I would have to agree with John that although Arsenal lost the game and there was a lot of complaints about the refereeing, particularly from the Arsenal supporters, it was discipline that cost us the match.
Yeah.
Certainly, Xhaka was a silly challenge on Silva, and
I thought Silva was falling anyway, Liam.
Well, he was, but you're going to get that. But when they analysed it, VAR analysed it, it was clear and obvious that one, not only did he pull his shirt in as he was falling down, but it was his leg. He stuck his leg out. He stuck his leg out. It was a very bad challenge. And he's going on his right foot. He's going towards the byline. How dangerous is that going to be when you've got backup on the near post?
Yeah.
It really was a bad decision by Xhaka to get involved in challenging. And I think I spoke to you a couple of weeks before. You're mad if you start making tackles in the box now. You've got to block.
Yes.
Unless a fella is just going to put the ball in an empty net, you don't challenge in the box. You don't go down in the box.
Right.
And Xhaka made that mistake. And then Gabriel lost the head completely. He gets booked over the penalty. And then a stupid challenge on Jesus.
Yeah.
And he's off. And Arsenal were the better team. I thought they were very disciplined in many ways against City. Everybody was marking well. They were denying space to the City forward line, staying very, very concentrated. And then when they did get the ball, some of the football they played was absolutely brilliant. The goal that Saka scored is an example of that. It was about 5 or 6 passes, very quick passes, one-touch passes, and the ball's in the back of the net. So it was a fine performance by Arsenal, but agree 100% with John, that discipline cost us.
Yeah, John, City a long way clear now, and the most dramatic change I see in Pep Guardiola's approach, since he signed Ruben Dias, they have tightened up at the back, and he's got Laporte alongside him, who is a good defender, but he's not a kind of lead defender. He's not going to attack the ball so much, but Dias and Laporte as a partnership, and sometimes Stones is in there, but Laporte is a very good player. This is a massive change from Pep in years past, not just in the Premier League, but at Bayern Munich and, of course, at Barcelona. Defence was never really the priority I felt it ought to be. With this team, it is the priority and it's paying off. I mean, they beat Brentford 1-0 the week before. They're getting 1-0s now, and they need to because they don't have a prolific goal scorer.
No. Well, I think getting Diaz in, and don't forget, he had company in there a few years ago, who was a terrific player, and he never replaced. Well, it's very hard to replace those players, Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like if Van Dijk went out of Liverpool, like we saw last year. It's very hard to replace them.
Yeah.
But it might not be a change of emphasis on his defences. It's just that he got a good, really good top class player in to do what's needed to be done.
Company was very injury prone, John. Missed a lot of games, Company.
Well, he did, but he played a lot of games as well, Eamon. You know, he was. If you go back on his record, if he played whatever many games he played. But the point is, he didn't. And I don't know if you were if in management now. If I was in management now to look around. Where do you get a good centre half? You'd have to be scouting all over the world, Eamon, as they do now. Anyway, But getting Diaz in, I don't think it's necessarily changed his policy or his idea on the game. It's just that he's a good player and gets on with the job and doing it. And as you say, with Laporte in there as well, they're two really good defenders in at the back now.
Yeah, Liam, just on that question, and we'll come to Liverpool in a moment because it's very relevant to Liverpool, the way they are squandering points in many respects. The importance of having what Arsenal sides, like if you say Martin Keown and Adams in that great Arsenal team, I detect a change of emphasis on Guardiola's part. And this fella Diaz and the partnership he's formed with Laporte, they have an outstanding goalkeeper, world-class goalkeeper in Ederson. And that triangle is hugely important. And it's working in a big way for City, more than the dazzling attacking football of the Aguero period, should we say.
Yeah, they've definitely concentrated on being better in defence, and Diaz coming in has helped enormously. I think even Cancelo playing right back has been very, very good as well, although he's a very attacking player. So they have strength in depth there. I think that's why they've pulled away in the league. I think they have the better squad of players and they've been able to if a player gets injured or if a player, has had a problem with COVID. I know they've had fewer cases than most of the other clubs. But when they've had a problem, they've got such a strong squad that someone just steps into the other player's shoes, Eamon. Yeah. And that's where they're very strong. They've only conceded 13 goals in 21 games.
Yeah.
That's the best defence in the league. And that's why I think they've just pulled away over the last month, haven't they?
They have indeed. And the teams they pulled away from, people thought it might be a three-horse race, John, with City, Chelsea and Liverpool. And it looked that way for a period in the autumn. Now, on Sunday, Chelsea hosted Liverpool at Stamford Bridge. And the question of being able to defend, I think, was the key to this game. With 5 minutes to go to half-time, John, Liverpool were 2-0 up. But they gave 2 goals up in that 5 minutes. Now, you played in a great Leeds team. Liam played in a great team at Juventus, championship-winning teams. You don't give up 2 goals when you're away from home and you're 5 minutes away from getting to the dressing room, do you?
Well, it can happen, Eamon. I mean, if you look at the goals that scored, the first goal for Chelsea was a fantastic goal.
Yeah, it was a great goal.
You know what I mean? There was nothing. There's nothing you can do about that.
No.
Eamon,
okay. Well,
and it can happen.
Disagree because I think they were under pressure and there was gaps and holes in their defence for the previous 25 minutes. But the goal itself was superb, and you couldn't blame anyone for that.
No. But the way Liverpool are playing, Eamon, I mean, we often say when the match is on, when we're watching and we're talking to each other, they've got this high line, that they've had for a while now, and that's you're living. It's a really, really not a good policy to have when you're defending. I mean, if you defend properly, you get back and get into cover positions. And if you look at most of the goals that Liverpool concede, it's because they've come up high line, somebody gets behind them. And there's no need to do it.
No.
There's just no need to do it. And if they continue doing it, then you get goals against them, Eamon.
Yeah, Van Dijk is the one making those calls. He is the leader of the team. He's certainly the leader of defence. I saw him, and we talked during that match, actually. He was up ahead of the other 3 players in the back four. He was actually in advance of them in a kind of crazy position.
Well, it is a crazy position, and there's no need to do it. I mean, if you drop, if you drop back, then you've got everybody in front of you. If you play that game, it's you're on a wing and a prayer, because if somebody delivers the ball properly and somebody makes the run properly, there's nothing you can do about it, and that's what happens. And every so often, it is going to happen.
Yeah,
and that's what happens. If you look at most of the goals they concede, that's what's happened with them.
Yeah.
It's getting behind them and. Or there's no need to do it, and I think they're going to continue with that. And I thought on Saturday, Van Dijk himself in recent times has looked a bit sluggish, Eamon.
He has, yeah.
Like he's a very quick lad. He's a terrific player. Maybe it's the amount of matches they're playing because everybody's playing an awful lot of matches. But he looks a little bit sluggish to me.
He has had COVID as well, John, and that can have after effects.
That could do it, Eamon. Yeah, definitely.
Liam, this question of the high line and that way of defending, you played in the league where defence was an art. The Masters, you played with them and against them. The high line's unknown in Italy, as far as I know. Deep is okay, isn't it?
Yes, for most teams, they'd play deep, Eamon, and just let other teams come on. And then as they get up into the last third of the pitch, then they'd start closing people down very, very quickly. But they do let you have space up until, 40 yards from goal. And then it's crowded, very little space.
Yes.
I think in the great AC Milan under Sacchi, they played a high line. And they pressed teams.
Right.
But they were absolutely outstanding with the likes of Rijkaard, Van Basten and Hullet in the team, and great Italian defenders like Franco Baresi and Maldini, who were very quick as well. So Sacchi wanted to play this high. If you're going to play a pressing game, you almost have to play a high line.
Right.
But Liverpool do exaggerate it. I do agree with you and with John. And they're almost like Van Dijk is almost saying, well, I'm quick enough to deal with anything over the top. Yeah. But as John says, if there's a really precise ball and a quick player on the end of it, you're not going to catch him. And they have been caught out with that. They certainly, if there's an area where you say Liverpool could improve, because they are a great team to watch. Yeah. And they score an awful lot of goals. It is defensively, without any doubt. But that's probably why they score a lot of goals, Eamon. They're pushing the full-backs up very, very, very high. They're almost like midfield players or almost like wingers. Yes. But I think it's City's consistency have made us kind of focus on this Liverpool, this Liverpool weakness as we're talking.
Yeah, now, Liam, Lukaku cost £98 million sterling, I think, to come to Chelsea from Inter in the summer. Big signing for Thomas Tuchel, and he gave an interview to Italian television, which I actually saw, and of course it made the headlines, saying he wasn't happy with the way the team was set up at Chelsea and he wanted to go back to Inter. Thomas Tuchel left in an impossible position and said he wasn't playing on Sunday, which he didn't, and we'll see what happens from here. When you're just been signed for that sum of money and the wages and salary that go with it, it's really out of order, isn't it, in a big way? To say you want to go back to Inter?
No, I don't think he said that, Eamon. Now, come on, you're great at saying, No, he didn't say that. He said at some stage in my career.
That's fair enough. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
I wouldn't mind going back. Going back. He said he left very quickly, didn't have a chance to say a real goodbye to the fans. I think that what you're saying now is a little bit taking the situation out of context. Right. However, I think he was well within his rights to say, he did cost 90, 100 million. He doesn't understand. I don't understand why he's not playing. Yeah. Maybe he thinks the coach doesn't fancy him. Right. And if that's the truth, I think he's quite within his rights to say he's not happy that he's not getting picked every week. Yeah. Okay. I think when he did play, I think he hasn't let anybody down. He scored a lot of goals. Even recently, since his comeback, he scored an awful lot of goals. And, I would be in his corner rather than Tuchel's, to be quite honest.
Right. Well, John, I think Liam is right to point out that I perhaps took a piece of it out of context. And he's certainly right to say he scored, in fact, in Chelsea's last two games. But he also has spent quite a few games on the bench. What would you say?
Well, Eamon, I think first things here, we have to get the timing of it. Yes. When he made this comment for the paper, it was 3 weeks ago.
It was on television, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was 3 weeks ago when he wasn't playing.
Yeah.
Right, he was on the bench. Yeah. Now, what's made it very, very well, he should never have made done the interview and say what he said. It was ridiculous in any player in that situation. And I think he was on the bench, so he wasn't happy about how things were going. What am I doing here? Paid a lot of money for him on the bench. And funny enough, since the interview, he got back in the team scored 2 or 3 goals.
Yeah, he did score.
But made it look worse in the context of what he was saying at that particular. He obviously wasn't happy at the time he did the interview, Eamon. Yeah. Because he wasn't playing, he was on the bench a lot, and he wasn't playing in the team. Yeah. But since then, he's got into the team and he's playing. But there's no doubt he should never have done the interview and say what he said. Obviously, every time you do an interview, and he should know he's 28 years of age now, you leave yourself open for it to be taken out of context, because that's what television people do and newspapers do.
Well, to be fair now, Liam has pointed to the context, and what Liam says that he said is actually accurate. He said, I never got a chance to say goodbye to the Inter fans, and of course, I'd love to come back someday and play for Inter. Yes. It is possible to take that out of context, but also it's possible to be suspicious.
No, I agree with that, Eamon. But what he also said at the time, that he wasn't happy sitting on the bench.
He did, and he didn't think the team was set up to suit him.
Now that was the hard part when you look at all the business. In other words, I've just come to the club. It doesn't look like there's They're playing me because that's the way they're playing, and I'm out of the team. That was 3 weeks ago. Then he got into the team, as we know, and he scored 2 or 3 goals, and he's back in the team again. But the point is, he should know at his age, Eamon, in football, that you don't do interviews like that. You don't leave yourself open for people getting it wrong in any way whatsoever. I mean, you'd have to look at it and say, why did he do the interview, Eamon? What was the point in it, you know?
I'll ask that question of Liam.
Well, I don't honestly know. John might have a point there. I don't know why he did it. Maybe because he felt he wanted to speak to the Inter fans.
Yes.
It was Sky Italia, wasn't it? It was Sky in Italy. That's I suppose is the reason. It's difficult when you're asked the question, are you happy, you know, the way things are going at Chelsea when you've been sitting on the bench, game in, game out, and you've been the top player. You're the reason why they started off the league.
Yeah.
One of the reasons, should I say, not just him, but you're one of the reasons why Chelsea got a flyer in the league and he was scoring goals. Then the lad got injured, and since he's been back, he's been ready to go. And the manager has played him sparingly, hasn't he?
Yes,
you know,
he has,
so
yeah.
I think Lukaku might have had the feeling, well, you know what, this guy doesn't really fancy me, so I'm going to make a bit of trouble. Perhaps John is right, but that's the way of the world in football now.
Yeah, and there is a history as well, I'm sure you'll both agree, of strikers at Chelsea. Fernando Torres is one, but there have been other examples of great strikers. Shevchenko, for example, not doing well, but not necessarily being the choice of the coach at the time. Michael Ballack, I think, was another player who went there and did really badly. Just let's move on to Manchester United, John. We watched them last night against Wolves. Wolves, right through the game, from the get-go, destroyed them. Pass, movement, shots on goal, everything really that you'd want from a team. Cost very little. Have Moutinho, who's 35 in midfield, a really, really outstanding professional. It was a very, very good performance by Wolves and a very, very poor performance by Manchester United, John.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't good, Eamon. You know, you'd have to get a bit worried about the situation there now after a few matches. There doesn't seem to be any progress. The fact that they look as if they've gone back a bit, not gone forward, Eamon. And it'd be very, I'd say, very, very worrying for the Manchester United supporters and the Manchester United club with what we saw last night.
Yeah. After the game, the coach, Ralph Rangnick, German coach, interim coach until the end of the season, said he needed more time, hadn't had enough time. To which it struck me, look at Conte at Spurs. Look at the immediate effect he's had and did have right from the get-go. More intensity. He moved Harry Kane up front. He made tactical changes that worked. And Spurs, I don't think they've lost a game under Conte. And there was an immediate and obvious change in that team. In the case of Manchester United, Liam, they've gone backwards, as John has said, and noticeably backwards. They're not really putting themselves about, not looking for the ball. And if it wasn't for, De Gea, their goalkeeper, who's playing out of his skin, they wouldn't have survived in a couple of the games Rangnick has managed.
No, I thought they were very, very lucky up at Newcastle, Eamon.
Yeah.
Newcastle out. And that's pretty damning if Newcastle outplay you, because they're in a poor kind of state of affairs. But no, it hasn't happened for Manchester United. They got a few results under them to begin with, they beat Arsenal. They beat Arsenal. I think that was probably their best performance since Rangnick has been there.
Yeah.
But again, it's consistency of selection. I don't see it. He's chopping and changing. The midfield has always been a problem for me, whether it's McTominay, Fred. He never seems to get it quite right in the middle of the park. The wide players are not playing so wide. He has them kind of tucked in. And then, you've got Ronaldo and Cavani up front. I don't know. We talked about this when he got the job, and we had our doubts that an interim manager can really get stuck into the job straight away because you don't know what's going to be there in 6 months. Whereas, the contrast you've made with Conte at Spurs is completely different. He's got, a long-term contract there, 3-4 years. And, he's got a plan to go about things. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets Daniel Levy to get the checkbook out in the transfer window so they can secure that fourth place. They're in a good position to finish fourth now because of the results that Conte has had. And, they're not conceding goals, very few goals, and that's typical Conte, typical Italian. They're all working harder than they were at the start of the season. I think even visibly looking at the Spurs players, it looks as if to me they've done a few pound, a few kilos. You know what I mean? So I think probably got them. He's got them fitter. He's got them stronger. And I don't know what's going to happen at Manchester United. Nobody does. But if they don't make the Champions League and finish in the top four, it's going to be a disastrous season for them.
I'd be astonished if the team.
I'm
coming to you, John. Sorry, go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, it's just. I think we spoke about this before on your program. Interim managers are deadly.
Yeah,
absolutely deadly. Yeah. You find with managers, we've all played football, and my take on it is to build them around the team, you've got to believe in your manager, and you've got to believe he's going to be there forever.
Yes.
Right, because you have to please him. He's the man. He says, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. Then he's the man you're going to depend on for your contract and all the future and the morale in the dressing room. And that's my take on it. You have to believe he's going to be there. He's going to be there. You're going to be there forever. He's going to be there forever. And you're all in it together. But if you get an interim manager, you think, well, he's only going to be here for a few months.
Well, funny enough, Paul Ince made that very point on Sky afterwards, and also on Sky afterwards. And I'd like to ask both yourself and Liam about this. I'll start with you, John. Luke Shaw gave an interview, and Luke Shaw doesn't give interviews. He's a very, very good player, a very hard working player. He's come back from the dead. Mourinho treated him really badly. And in the interview, he said, well, we haven't quite understood what the manager's ideas are. Now, he didn't come out with this as if he wanted to make any big statement. He was humming and hawing, but you could see from his demeanour that he was speaking for the other players. We're not quite sure of this and that.
Yeah.
That's pretty damning, John. And
it is. Well, if players are not sure what the coach wants or the manager wants, then there's something wrong with what the manager wants.
Well, we were talking during the game last night. We both said the players don't look as if they know what's expected. And by that I mean Sancho, the young lad, even Ronaldo and Cavani. Cavani is normally 90 minutes full on, not last night. Liam, can I just go to you and make that point about the arrangement? An interim manager for 6 months or interim head coach with then a contract to be a consultant for 2 years. It's a very strange arrangement for a club like Manchester United, isn't it?
Yes, we flagged this up when they made that announcement, Damon. It is.
We did, yeah.
But there have been managers that gone in short term. I suppose you can call them interim. John said it doesn't always work, but it seemed to work at Chelsea down through the years. Benitez went in there when they sacked. I can't remember. Abramovich sacked some managers. I can't remember who got sacked when Benitez went in. The league form improved and they ended up winning the UEFA Cup or the Europa League, whatever it was called then. Di Matteo went in there as interim manager and won the Champions League. Yes. So only at Chelsea it seems to work because it's not really done that much, is it? Interim manager. Usually you get a manager sacked and it usually happens in and around the international break just before Christmas.
Yeah.
And that's where clubs decide. I think Conte come in this year, Ranić come in this season in that context. But no, the interim manager and then saying he's going to be a consultant in 6 months' time. Yeah. I don't really know what they were thinking, but the organisation and the running of Manchester United over the last well, since Fergie retired, has been disastrous, really, hasn't it? Let's be honest about it. It's been absolutely disastrous.
One other point, and Manchester United fans are very passionate, or we all are, about our clubs that we follow, but Antonio Conte let it be known when Manchester United were looking for a coach, John, that he was available. And I think he said or he let it be known that he was available, but he would want to decide who comes and goes from the playing staff. United didn't take him up on that offer. And the question I have for you is, that's significant, isn't it? And how are they ever going to get a top coach like, say, Pochettino or Conte, somebody of that calibre, while Ramwick is around as the consultant hanging around the club?
Yeah, well, I think the consultancy thing, Eamon, without trying to... This is what I think. I think he would have only taken the job, and this would be a money thing, he would have only taken the job on the interim basis if he would be paid for another 2 years.
Right.
He'd be consultant, Eamon, so he'd have another 2 years' pay on it. You know? So what's the consultant? It doesn't mean anything. But you see, you have to go back on the Manchester United situation. The people behind the scenes, and we don't know who they are, and it goes back to the appointment of Solskjaer in the first place. They don't want a Conte, Eamon.
No.
Because Conte is a strong guy who gets what he wants, knows what he wants, and gets what he wants.
Right.
And he has to have that assurance before he takes the job. Right. The fact is, they don't want that. They want the Solskjaer. Do you think Solskjaer was in charge of the buying and selling of the club? Did he want Ronaldo? Was it his decision? No. He was told what to do. He's coming from Norway, for a mediocre job to be manager of Manchester United. He's not in a position to say at that time, like Conte, this is what I want to do.
Right.
He was delighted to get the job. And I don't blame him for that. And he's getting a few million a year and all that. But he's a lad that would say, right, this is what we're going to do. And okay, that's okay. If you get a Conte in and say, what? I don't want him.
Right.
This is what we want to do. They don't want anybody like that, Eamon. They might get to the stage where they have to take somebody like that. Because what happens is, when you're doing what they're doing, it hits you on the pitch, Eamon, where everybody can see. And that's why they don't want the Conte.
Right.
Sorry, I've gone rambling away there.
No, you haven't. I mean, the fact of the matter is that you see a lot of... We listen to a lot of stuff on television and read a lot of stuff in newspapers, Liam, and to have you and Liam tell it from your perspective is just about as good as it gets if you're interested in the subject. Liam, just to finish on the fact that Conte, they didn't take Conte up on his offer. It's hard to know what Manchester United are looking for in terms of a coach and what value they put on, or what significance they put on who's coaching the team. Well,
if I can give you my spin on that, I would have said that probably Conte. I agree. Again, I'm agreeing with John that they probably didn't want a coach who's totally in charge of the comings and goings. But also there may have been a reservation about Conte, about the style of play. He is defensive-minded. He is Italian. You saw that at Chelsea. His teams are very organised. And it might have been, is he going to play the Manchester United way? Is he going to play Matt Busby's kind of football? Is he going to play Alex Ferguson's kind of football? And I think they got their fingers burned with Mourinho.
Yes.
When they brought him in. And although Mourinho won a couple of trophies, he messed the club up completely as regards that. And that may have been a factor in the decision that they didn't go for Conte at that particular time.
Okay, and that's a really interesting take on it that's different to John's and mine. I'm very grateful to you both. To just make a point to John and Lynn quickly, it's a stat I meant to bring into the conversation earlier. The difference between Manchester City and Liverpool. Manchester City have been in winning positions 17 times and not lost a game. Liverpool have been in winning positions, John, 17 times, and in 5 of those games they've thrown that advantage away. I'd like to ask both of you, Liam and you, about the significance of that for a team that's chasing a championship.
Well, Eamon, can you just
Yeah.
clarify that? You said 17 games, and then you said without losing, or do you mean went on to win?
No, they went on not to win. City have won the 17. Where they've been, there's been 17 games.
They won the 17, whereas Liverpool and 5 of them. Yeah, well,
I've dropped the points.
Yeah, well, that's where your defence is all important. City this year,
Yes.
and it's unusual for us to be talking that way about Guardiola.
Yeah.
But I think he has concentrated. He knew he had to get it right. If he's going to win the Champions League, he has to get that defence right, and it's much, much better than it has been in previous years.
Yeah, and John, your take on that? It's significant, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you go back to the high line, Eamon, which is the obvious thing where I think Liverpool fall down. Now, in football, what I found anyway is that if you're doing something wrong, like that high line, for X amount of matches, you'll get away with it.
Yeah.
But there's X amount of matches, you won't get away from it.
Right.
Away with it. And Manchester City have definitely tightened up their defensive situation. Eamon.
Right.
So therefore, they're not losing those matches that Liverpool, because the fault they have, are doing so.
Okay, John Giles and Liam Brady, thank you both very much for joining us. We're very grateful to both of you. And if you're a fan of any of those clubs, I'm sure Liam and John will have given you something to think about. We're grateful to them.